I wish you'd listen. I wish you'd listen.
Walk, walk, ooh, walk. Tell you what makes me y'all say. Walk, walk, ooh, walk.
Is that folk back then would travel great distances to secure a future of positive instances. And though the journey was filled with danger, keeping faith in what's unseen to my people is no stranger. Did I mention all the miles that they covered in search of their hopes and dreams to discover? Seeking a life free of grueling labor and an opportunity to taste the city flavor. The way that it moved people out from the sharecropper life of the South. The fact that without Jim Crow, hope and progress had a chance to grow.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to our Bronzeville Trail show, Recapturing and Making History. I am honored to have two remarkable guests today to give us updates. They're going to give us some history, they're going to give us some updates, they're going to tell us what some stuff that is new that's going on with the trail. And I think having both of them is really like a testament to the collective effort and to all that's been going on behind the scenes, even though I cannot wait until the actual trail is developed. But Maria Villalobos and John Gay, who's new working on the trail, they're going to give us some background information. I want to express thanks first before we start to both of them for taking time out of their day to be here with us today. So your work on the Bronzeville Trail Landscape Research Initiative, that sounds all fancy. Mm-hmm. So John, you want to tell us a little bit about, number one, how you came to work on this project, how you knew John, like the whole thing, like how did that happen?
Okay, great. So I met John a couple of years ago, and we actually learned that we had some common friends. He being an accountant and very close with my first accountant and business mentor, John Hill of Hill Taylor, is what drew us together. And then, of course, us both being members of Kappa Alpha Psi, and that drew us together. So then I've been working on a project with a close friend of John's who they worked together before. Okay. And this project is a Bronzeville EV charging terminal project.
Okay,
and
now
so,
that's deep. Yes.
So coming into the community to provide a niche that's missing in the community, which is very similar to the Bronzeville Trail. Oh. We have this resource, right, that is not being used. It's a niche because it can provide an amenity that the community needs and wants. Everybody wants to get to the lakefront, right? This is yet another avenue in which to get there.
Love it.
Okay, so we've been talking, and he also learned that I'm an avid cyclist, formerly ranked number 5 in the state when I was a young professional. And so he goes, "You what?" He goes, "I got to tell you about Bronzeville Trail." So you know what that's like, right?
When John starts to talk about Bronzeville Trail.
So he's telling me all about it, and I'm like, "You got to be kidding me." So there is a gospel jazz house vocalist. Her name is Dana Stovall.
Okay.
AKA Dana Divine.
Okay.
And we did a competition, I think, in 2008 on creating a pattern, but I used the Bronzeville Trail and put that juxtaposed the rhythm of the music of Dana's song and created this pattern. So I told John about this. He goes, "What?" And
I said, to see that. Where can I get that?
Right. I said, "Well, go to my website and you'll see it." Okay. So he goes, "Whoa." So then he calls me up over Christmas, and he's like, "I got to talk to you." I go, "Well, what's going on?" And he goes, "Well, how would you like to be project manager of the Bronzeville Trail Landscape Initiative for the Bronzeville Trail Foundation?" And I go, "Well, I think that sounds like something I'd be interested in because, one, I'm an architect. Two, I reside in the community. Our home studio is at 45th and Greenwood, which is right down the street from the last stop of the trail, which will be 42nd and Lake Park."
Yes.
We did this competition in '08. I'm a cyclist. I'm back in the saddle again. And in fact, from a an African American perspective, I did the ride, the 60th anniversary of Selma to Montgomery.
You did the ride.
I did the ride. Okay, 52 miles this past Saturday, averaging 18.1 miles an hour.
Wow.
Rock killing it, right?
Wow.
I can't wait for the photos to come out.
Wow.
I've got a flyover video.
That's so cool.
Okay,
So
so and I'll have that to share with everybody. So when you combine that, I'm a 20-year resident. I did the housing design standards for a firm that I worked for back in the day for Bronzeville for their second parade of homes. You then add the layer of cycling, and you add the layer of community engaged resident. It just made sense.
I can't.
And that was the beginning.
I can't
of it.
believe, number one, I've never met you.
I know.
I mean, like, I've never met you, but I'm
Right.
only on the board, not like behind the scenes like
Yes.
you two.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I first met Maria, it was a couple of years ago. I was coming onto the board for the first time. And all I remember is Maria was always there. Like, she's the person behind the scenes. Like, she was making stuff happen at IIT. She was making stuff happen when we had, and now she's making stuff happen with grants and all kinds of stuff. But she's
Yep.
also into the architecture, which just to hear her talk about it is so exciting to
Yes.
me every single time. Okay, so Maria.
Thank you for having me, and
Yes.
thank you everybody for watching, and thank you for welcoming your neighborhood in your community. Yes, it was exciting, right? Gloria and I had been working. We were the very first ones to write the draft for the grant that we received from the Mellon Foundation last October, November. Gloria and I started working on this grant a couple years ago. And our interest was always how can we encourage everybody and put our heads together to build the team and the resources to make sure that we don't rush into creating something new without really documenting and telling the story of the neighborhood and the neighbors over the years, over the decades, and all those transformations. So it had to be a different kind of project,
Yes.
right? It had to be a project really that spent meaningful amounts of quality time looking at people's history, you know? And the neighborhood's history.
I love it. I love it because
right.
when we went up to the 606 and we visited other trails, and every time I see those, I think Bronzeville's story is so rich.
Yes.
Ours has to be different. It has to tell that story. I just hope that I'm still alive when we get done, because it's because to do that takes a really long time, and to do all the grants and the research and the things behind the scenes takes a really long time. I still want to be able to ride my bike up there when we're done. I want to run it. I want to walk up there when we're done. But I know that it's going to be amazing. So our first image is a landscape perspective from the 1930s. So the two of you, tell me what was happening.
So, number one, in the 30s, that had to be the hotbed of the community. I've often said that I felt like Bronzeville is Chicago's Rosewood,
Oh, yeah.
where the dollar is circulating within that community,
Yes.
right, over 30 times before it exits the community. You had thriving residents, businesses, entertainment venues, from jazz to theater to blues.
Yes.
And let's also not leave the churches and
Yes.
the other businesses out. I mean, you have like
And politicians.
Yes,
We have
Supreme Life,
Yes.
which is an amazing renovation. You had the Overton, right, which was brought back, which coincidentally was my first historic national landmark project that I worked on, which is right up the street at 36th and State, and Bronzeville Trail starts at basically 39th and Federal, or Dearborn, which is right off the state. I mean, it's all right there at your fingertips. You had Pilgrim Baptist Church and Tommy Dorsey and the birth of gospel. You got Quinn Chapel and the abolitionist movement, and justice for the African American community, all happening, right there. Okay, so it was an amazing time. I wish I could have seen it at that point in time. The architecture, we were living in those homes. Okay, as an African American architect and living in the community, having had an opportunity to build in that community, and now in 2003, right? But imagine in 1930, all of us who had the means to buy and or build in that community versus today.
I love
It's
it.
just a difference in the community.
I love it.
Okay.
What has your historical background on that time and period what have you learned about it?
We it's really fascinating what you're saying, because that's exactly the kind of images that we've been collecting for the next 2.5, 3 years. This is what the team is going to be doing. Usually systematically, the stories of black and brown neighborhoods, it's not like you can Google it. You can click on it. There
Right.
is not an archive that you can go find it.
Right.
Is in the majority of cases fragmented. You have to reconstruct it. You have to put it together. So that first image that we shared with you, what shows you, is a city grid that it was uninterrupted, right, except for the trail that's running through it, that piece of infrastructure. But you can notice that there was no highway. The neighborhood has not been divided yet. A lot of the extraction and the demolition of people's homes and people's history, the displacement of all those families has not occurred. So it's that bright, vibrant time. Imagine the creative energy. So one of our first tasks as part of the research team is, can we capture in one place, in one digital platform, all that richness, all that beauty, all those nuances? Who built that trail? Where did they come from?
Right.
Who are their families? Are they still near us? What was hanging out next to that structure? What was, walking 5 minutes from your house and taking this place and having that opportunity for mobility? And we want to do our best at documenting what all that meant in a very tangible way. Photographs, drawings,
Stories.
photo
Every time
albums,
we've
send it to
gone,
us.
we've had people there who are in their 80s who tell these stories that just get to my heart.
Right.
They were
Exactly.
there while it was happening. Okay, so in our second picture, Imani, it changed the view of current times. Tell me what's happening.
In this one, just to kind of continue, what we've been working on is how can we first quantify the violence, the extraction, the construction, the demolition. And for anybody that, any kind of rhetorical talking points that say racial policies are not systemic, our drawings are going to show otherwise.
Yes, they are. They would have to be.
Right, so that we're kind of making a conscious effort of remapping those times in different moments of time to see everything you'll see in pink are those kind of what we call ghosts, living ghosts, all the traces of the ancestors. And we are going to have an understanding of where they were, who they were, what were those homes but also their stories. There is a portion of the work that we are calling lived stories, where we will also record oral testimony, oral history, and build that inside the digital platform so that the cohesive and collective memories of the trail bring both the tangible and the intangible to a space where everybody can meet together, and it's going to be a living platform, so it's never complete, right? We're going to design in a way that is always open for all of you to send your memories, your stories, your contributions. So it's like a living digital archive for the material, the tangible and the intangible, the living and the ancestors. And
That I just know that it's going to be so different than any other. I've been to the trail in Atlanta, to one in New York, and it's beautiful.
Right.
But I don't feel a story. But I do see how it impacts the community that it's in, because all the small businesses and artists and people who can like pack in around it and do things. That's pretty cool. But I just know that a community like Bronzeville, what's going to happen once you do all this collecting, it's going to be outstanding. Okay, so then we move into like the kind of third phase with the art on our next slide. Talk to us, Maria, about the art.
well, the cyclist is
Yes.
the protagonist.
And then
here.
you got to tell us about the cycling part.
But we spoke with Shirley Williams from the Bronzeville Historical Society, and she, brilliant as she is, and all her trajectory and knowledge that we are so fortunate to have her as part of the team.
Yes.
She said to us that the history of the trail can be told in these three important moments: while the train was running, when it was closed and the bridges started to come down, and it's this kind of moment of deconstruction and extraction. And then during President Obama's term, hope was in the air. So this after-school program was formed, and the murals took over the walls of abandonment. You know? And then we see all this incredible imagery bringing hope to the trail, and then that has become the places where people hang out, right?
Absolutely. And one of the things that I noticed when I moved into the community, and let me just back up just a little bit. As a tennis player, and my pro was at Bally's, Hyde Park Bath and Tennis, and now it's a urgent care and a fitness center. We were told not to cross 47th Street. He said you can go to Walgreens, get something, and come back, but don't go any further. Okay, that was my first thought of the community, remembering that, right? But as a resident and a future resident, you see those murals, and it causes you to focus on that element, which is a former station of the embankment. Okay, so you see the portals, that the paint is over, and it actually has beautified it, but it has forced us not to forget it. Okay, so yes, it is the embankment is old Chicago concrete, and it's massive, and it's sitting
beautiful.
there. And yes, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you see all the foliage up there in the spring and summertime, and even the trees with no leaves now. It's amazing, and I often wonder, what could we do with that? Okay, so back to your previous question also on what is it like, after the 30s to the 50s, right? And the ghosts, the pink, okay? So from a political standpoint, current circuit judge Evans was a former alderman, and he put it in motion to start the redevelopment.
Okay.
Tony Preckwinkle, longtime alderman, made sure that the housing came. So the infill began to happen during her long term,
Tenure.
right? And she passed the baton to Sophia King, who had the seat for a short period of time, and that began the commercial redevelopment. Okay? And now Alderman Robinson, with his connections with the state, the county, and Preckwinkle is now the president of the county, and things are happening. Okay? And it's happening because of those connections and not forgetting the history
I love it.
and moving it forward now.
I love it.
Right.
So we only have a few minutes left.
that. Yes.
I want to talk about what's next. Like, I know, and you know, like I talked about before, you guys are doing all this stuff behind the scenes, and I wish I could be with you more when you're meeting.
Yep.
But what is next? Like, what's the next big thing that we could look for?
So the next big thing is creating the live stories that Maria has mentioned.
Yes.
We're going to have about 20 or 30 of those, and then they get paired. Then we go through those and find the best and create a podcast series of about
That I think I'm supposed to do.
10 episodes.
10 episodes, and we'll take 2 or 3 of the 30 in each episode, okay? And then now we have that piece completed, okay? But Maria and her team, landscape research continues. They're wrapping up their drone footage of the winter foliage. They're going to be starting spring soon. Summer happens, and then at the end and in the middle of the summer, we're going to start to put a draft together of this, let's call it a multimedia presentation of podcasts, flyovers, still photographs.
Our show here.
Our shows here, and it gets that gets presented. It's in October, right? At the gala,
Yep.
right? So
Exactly.
that's what's happening next. We're going to be spending a lot of time
smoking.
together.
I love time together. It's so much fun. And
Yes.
the archival research, the lived stories, and that's the portion we call the blooming habitats, right? Because it's amazing kind of process, as you were saying, the murals, the trees, and there's so much beauty in it, right? Because as the construction was happening and the buildings were disappearing, nature took over.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
So it's a kind of
That's beautiful.
life has a resilience to it, diversity has a resilience to it, and it keeps growing and evolving. So during the spring and the summer, stay tuned because we are going to hold tons of workshops. We want this process to be as collective, as inclusive, as open as possible, to make sure that we capture not only the past, both from a tangible perspective and an intangible perspective with all the oral stories, but also the present. In one of our conversations with John, he was telling me the project, your thesis project, that was this kind of, I haven't seen it, but I imagine it's this beautiful reconstruction of all these urban landscapes.
Yes.
No?
My goodness.
We want to make sure we keep we capture what the neighborhood is nowadays.
Yes.
And that towards the end of the year, we all come together and reflect on it and say, okay, we are ready for 2026 now, where we will focus on prospective. What are the guidelines? What's the future?
That is amazing. Well, thank you all so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for the history lesson. Thank you for filling me in because I didn't even know what was happening, and it's even more beautiful than I thought it was. I'm so glad that you're here with us.
Oh, I'm
you
so
know I'm
glad
glad you're
to
here with us.
Thank
And you all
you.
make sure you subscribe to our show and share it with people so that everybody can know what upcoming events are that we're going to be working on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
you.